Opal, can you move, please? Thank you. Recently, Shimbol sent me their Zolink 600S wireless video transmission system. And I agreed to go ahead and review these because they met 3 very important criteria for me. 1, that they are budget priced compared to the competition. 2, worked reliably. And 3, that they were dead simple to use. So the usual caveats apply here. Shimbol won't be seeing this video ahead of time. All the opinions here are my own, blah, blah, blah. If you hear any construction sounds in the background, that's because apparently they are completely redoing the road outside my studio here. So let's take a quick look at these units. Both the receiver and the transmitter are pretty much exactly the same. On the side here, we have a 1/4-20 mount and a physical on-off switch. At the base, you have another 1/4-20 mount. On the side here, you have both SDI in and HDMI in. Now you just have one of each, which means you're not going to be able to do loop back through these devices. And you also have a USB-C port that you can use for powering these devices and also for upgrading the firmware in them. The rear has your MPF battery slot, the battery eject button. Let's go ahead and plug in a battery here. Turn the unit on. Now the screen here is not too terribly bright, just something to keep in mind, especially if you're working outdoors. Might be difficult to read the stuff on the screen. So you have 3 buttons here. Pressing and holding the middle button takes you into the different settings on this, but I'll be perfectly honest, you can pretty much ignore them because you won't ever really be needing to use any of them. In the settings section, you can manually pair them, change the language. The message button will display the SSID of these units and the version number, and that's it. Now on the screen here, you have a signal strength indicator. You'll have an indicator that tells you if you're coming through at like 1080p, 24 frames per second or 60 frames per second, the channel ID, and then there's also a battery indicator down at the bottom. If you press and hold the far left button for, I don't know, about 4 seconds, 3, 4, yeah. That's where you go into the update, firmware update section, but Shimbol hasn't released any firmware updates for this yet, so pretty much can ignore that. Now on the far right button here, you press and hold that for a few seconds and you get a QR code. You use that if you are using these with iOS devices to view the video signal. They do not have an Android app for the system. Last I heard from their techs, they were having some sort of technical difficulty getting this to talk to Android devices, so iOS only with these. Now that didn't impact me because I'm only using this system with field monitors. And that's it. Like I said, very simple to use. So what I'm gonna do now is install everything and just show you how quickly you can get up and running. So here's everything I'm gonna need to get everything set up. Note I'm using the FieldWorld LUT 7 Pro, which has the dummy battery on the back, so I can simply attach the 600S receiver right onto the back of it and not have to power that from a separate battery. It'll all run from the main battery on the monitor. All right, so let's get going. First thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna mount the battery onto the back of the field monitor. Take the receiver and mount that to the back of the field monitor. Plug in the HDMI cable. The other end into the receiver. Turn the monitor on. And we'll turn the receiver on. That's coming on. All right, we'll set that to the side. Now we'll mount the transmitter onto the little field monitor mount. Put that into the cold shoe of the FX3 cage. Tighten that down. HDMI cable here. HDMI cable into the FX3. Plug the battery into the back of the transmitter. Turn on the FX3. And now we will turn on the transmitter. Wait for the units to sync up. This can take a minute. Picked it up on channel 11. Transmitting at 1080p 24 frames per second. And there we are on the monitor. And that's what I really like about the 600S. Very simple to set up, working reliably. Those two things are pretty important for me. And if you remember, the other item that was important was price. I believe right now you can get the 600S system for around $400. Now that may not be exactly cheap, but when you compare it to other wireless transmission systems that have both HDMI and SDI, for example, the Hollyland Mars 400S, it is quite a bit less expensive. What about transmission distance? Well, if you have line of sight, then you can probably get close to the stated specs between, I think it's 400 to 600 feet. What I'm more interested in is how they work, for example, in interiors where there are obstructions in the way, like a door or two or a wall. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the field monitor here, I'm going to walk outside my house with it, and we'll see how the signal strength holds up. All right, so what we're going to do here is start the clock here. All right, now we're going to leave the studio. Door closed. You can see we're still got a good signal going. And there's Ember. Hi, Ember. All right. Now we'll open the front door. And as you can see, we're still going good. And the camera is up there in that room. Everything's still running great. Let's walk around here a little bit. Go further up in the yard. Double check. Signal still coming through great. Let's go around the side of the house here. We'll head over this way. And now we're starting to see a little bit of breakup here. Now granted, I'm on the complete opposite side of my house. So let's move back. Now let's see what we got. Looks like everything's running smoothly. And again, it's up in the far corner of the house, separated by 2 closed doors and 1, 2, 3 walls on the inside, or of course, you know, straight ahead through the exterior wall of the house, and still getting a perfect signal. My opinion, that's pretty impressive. There was another feature I forgot to mention. The 600S is a fanless design, meaning they are completely silent. Now I used these the other day for a little over 3 hours, and they were just a bit warm to the touch. So even without the fans, heat does not seem to be an issue. And lastly here, I just want to touch briefly on latency. What I can say is that it is about on par with what I've seen with the Mars 400S Pro. Meaning it's probably not ideal for things like focus pulling, but it is more than good enough for remote monitoring, for example. And keep in mind, a bit of that limitation is because of the inherent latency built into HDMI, and what camera you're using is going to play a part of that as well. And that's everything I wanted to touch on with the Shimbol Zolink 600S. If you've got any questions about this, let me know down in the comments. I appreciate you taking the time to watch. Have a good one.